Today is the 13th day of March 2017, and we continue with our series, Explorations in Savitri, with Alok Pandey. We are on Book 2, Book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 7, The Descent into Night, page 207. About 6 or 7 lines down.
Yes, we stopped on the
8 lines down, the rictus.
rictus, sardonic rictus. The medical term was rictus sardonicus.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
interesting.
term. And this is just the entry. And as Aurobindo goes deeper and deeper into this territory, we'll see more and more grim aspects of the same thing which has started. The twisting of forms. Aloof, its influence entered everywhere and left a cloven hoof mark on the breast, a twisted heart, and a strange somber smile mocked at the sinister comedy of life. Look at, the expressions. Twisted heart, where love is used for purely selfish purposes. Twisted, though it expresses something else. Somber smile, sinister comedy of life. Life should be a divine comedy, but it turns it into a sinister comedy where people take pleasure in things that are cruel, that are dark. Announcing the advent of a perilous form, an ominous tread softened its dire footfall, that none might understand or be on guard. None heard until a dreadful grasp was close. So evil comes not always in a very obvious way. It often comes concealed under various guises and masks, so that one doesn't recognize it. It takes admittance at one place in the human cycle. Aurobindo speaks of what has happened to religions. He says that every time a great ideal is brought down to earth, in fact, it starts with for the way humanity deals with an ideal, is to just pay it a lip service. And it allows only the surfaces of life to be colored with it. And often it is used as a guise to do the things which are the very opposite of what the ideal stands for. But what is the entry gate? The entry gate is I am a believer. I am, a follower. And Aurobindo cautions about it. And that's why he writes in one of his famous letters, I am against propaganda. I do not believe in propaganda except for politics and patent medicine. That's his sense of humor. He says, for a serious work like mine, it is a poison. It means that thousands of people will join and subvert the truth. And eventually the truth will recede into the secrecy of its silence from where it came. So there's the danger of turning any great spiritual truth into a religion with dogmas, fixed forms, belief systems,
And rituals.
And those diktats, thou must do this or else thou shall be punished. So, we have heard all this enough. So it's dangerous. And mother would so often caution that, don't take my name and start quoting me. Mother likes this, mother doesn't like this. What do we know? The divine is infinite. So to reduce him into formulas and fixed rituals, dogmas, but it comes in this way. So we don't recognize the evil there. Soft footfall. So we recognize when there is an open opposition. Or else, and that's what here it comes, or else all augured a divine approach. An air of prophecy felt, a heavenly hope, listened for a gospel, watched for a new star. So we know quite a few of such beings have come at least to my understanding, two beings that I very obviously feel. One was the famous Jonestown cult leader who led 900 people to mass suicide, telling them that doomsday is near and it's only if all of you die with me that you will reach heaven. And people believed. See how gullible one can be, vulnerable one can be. And they all drank, just few survived, either because they drank less or they didn't, they doubted. And they survived to tell the whole tragedy. Some 800 odd cult people died. Similarly, there was another cult in Japanese, inspired by some Japanese Shihom or something like that cult. Then, of course, there was Rajneesh, and that we'll see a description there. So, in the name of spirituality, in the name of divine and divinity, how the human mind can be taken captive. So, very often when people ask, why should we read about these things? Well, it's like when you go to pick up a product. If you don't know the difference between what is genuine and what is not genuine, you can be badly cheated. Because we don't know, we are ignorant. So we must at least know to some extent. Ultimately, if the soul is awake, nothing can cheat you. But still, most of us go with the mind in front. So Aurobindo is cautioning us. And look at these lines. The fiend was visible, but cloaked in light. We know about Hitler's God.
Yes.
Flashing helmet. He was like a being of light. And very interestingly, in Indian Vedic thought, one of the four asuras, one of them is cloaked in light actually. And he has a very interesting name, Vala or something like that. And he is a shining being. So cloaked in light. And many of these priests, Mother speaks about someone who requested Mother to come in. That time Mother was still going out to few places. That you please meet our Guruji and all. And they didn't know who she is. And Mother was still feeling, the different aspects of Indian life. So she went there. And she says, the moment I saw him, I saw the Asura standing there. And these people believed. And he was taken aback because he felt that it's dangerous now to have someone like her near me. I may be finished. And she communicated, it's between you and them because, the divine gives that freedom to each soul to experiment, even go through the dangers and learn by mistake and through error and fall. But look how dangerous it can be. Now, because it's an age of truth, many of these so-called swamis are being, exposed, which is part of the truth light. And what do? He seemed a helping angel from the skies. He armed untruth with scripture and the law.
This is what we're seeing.
Yes. And that's why Mother was not in favor of quoting Aurobindo like that. Because you can pick up one sentence from here or there and it doesn't give the true sense. You have to read everything that he has written on the subject to get the total drift, to get the overall vision.
He even gave a comment about that. Remember, he said something, only that is true, the opposite of which is also true in its own time and application. Yes.
That's why the mind cannot comprehend the totality of truth. Because it cuts it into bits and parts and truth has to be seen as a whole. So, armed untruth with the scripture and the law. I have often used, this example from the Ramayana. And it's worth remembering because as a child, I was quoted that, look, what is written in Ramayana, not by my parents, they had faith in Lord Rama, but by some other people. They said, see, women must be treated with, they should be put down. Why? Because the Ramayana says so. I said, where does it say in Ramayana? It says, in Ramayana it is written, Dhor Gawar Shudra Pashunari, Ye Sab Tadan Ki Adhikari. It means literally, Dhor is the dhol, which you beat. Gawar, the illiterate. Shudra, the downtrodden. Pashu, the animal. And Nari, woman. they must be treated with a stick. I said, I must find out where it is written. So I discovered that it is through the mouth of Ravana. Ravana says this in one of his. So I said, look at it. And when does he say? The context is when Hanuman is gone and Hanuman is caught. So he says, what should we do to Hanuman? So he says, he's an animal. How do you treat an animal? Beat him. So this famous thing comes. And Pandits were quoting this line as if it's there in the Ramayana to justify their own misdeeds and a very rotten order which had come. Ramayana is beautiful, but look at the misquote. So he says, armed untruth with the scripture and the law. This is the law. He deceived with wisdom. Of course, one has to understand here, it's not the true wisdom. So there is no capital W there. He looked like a very, wise person. And wise person is very easy. In India, you have to wear a, orange colored robe. I'm sorry, but I can't help it. Or maybe a white robe. Or some robe. And have some kind of a mala. Maybe a tikka. And you must know some Sanskrit slokas of scriptures. That's enough. And people, he knows Gita. He can quote it. And I have seen people remembering all these things but doing the very opposite. Same applies to all the traditions. Hinduism is no exception. But deceived with wisdom. Oh, you don't know. He's a great jnani. And that is what we see in the Ravana. Because people often ask this question. Ravana was a Pandit. He was an artist. So what? He was still an Asura. All the worse. It would have been all right if he didn't know these things and acted the way he did. It's all right for somebody who doesn't know to be egoistic. But he knew, but he used the scripture for totally justifying his, Aham Brahmasmi, that's how, I am Brahman. So you can take it as an egoistic boasting or you can take it as the deepest truth of your being. So this is the difference between Asura and the godlike. Asura just gives that little twist to the scripture and distorts. All kinds of, things. He armed untruth with scripture and the law. He deceived with wisdom. With virtue slew the soul. Imagine, obedience is a great quality. How Hitler finished a whole section of humanity, almost, by allegiance, faithfulness, patriotism. These are high sattvic qualities. Love for one's country. These are virtues, but these virtues have been used for evil purposes. Another famous example in Indian context is Karna. Karna has beautiful things in him. He's generous, he's truthful, he's a very nice human being. And among his virtues, one of them is feeling grateful towards a friend. It's a very nice thing. One should be. And Duryodhana knows how to exploit it. So before he uses him, actually he gives him a kingdom. And he's very happy. Lifelong after that, he followed Duryodhana's evil ways. So with virtue, slew the soul. And this is how the mafia dons still operate. All the mafia dons, if you see the history, Duryodhana was the first one. And then came much later the Italian mafia, where they would first look at people in distress, they would give money. And they say, don't worry. What do we have to? No, don't worry. You just enjoy. You get your daughter married, like that. And once the person is hooked, then one day they will say, take this gun and kill this person. So again, virtue, out of a misguided gratitude, generosity. So with virtue, slew the soul and led to perdition by the heavenward path. Virtues. So how beautiful and interesting these lines are. How to recognize them? Now there is one mark. A lavish sense he gave of power and joy. Divine power is clothed in the most humblest form. Somebody with a divine power will never say that I have so many powers. Aurobindo sitting on the mountain of Siddhis. The famous example of Dilip Kumar Roy. He asked Aurobindo to initiate him. And Aurobindo said, no, your quest is still mental. Later on, we'll see. So he was a bit disappointed. He went back, and then but he wanted to be initiated. So someone told him there is a tantric siddha yogi. He will initiate you. So he went and met the yogi. So yogi told him, you sit and be quiet. So he said, that's what I cannot do. My mind is very restless. So this yogi told him, don't worry, you just sit. I'll do the quiet part. So he sat and he became very quiet. Suddenly this yogi tells him, why you are telling me a lie? He said, what lie? You are already initiated. Who has initiated me? I see your guru. Who is my guru? Aurobindo. So he said, who told you? He told me. He said, but he told me something else. He said, Are, do you have a hernia? Strange. So Dilip Kumar Roy suddenly he said, yes, I do have a swelling in it's a hernia. That's why he has not yet openly initiated you. Because if he takes you in his fold openly, there will be so much pressure of forces that it can burst. It's out of his compassion. Go back to him. And then he told him something remarkable. He said, you know who he is? He said, I know he is a very great, typical fools like us, intellectual. So he said, he's sitting on all the mountains of siddhis that ever can be acquired by any person. And Aurobindo makes just a passing reference to it in a very humble way. My lover came and gave me his crown. And men said he is hunting after siddhis. He is all making the dead come alive, mother, that instance of the cat. But if you ask him, meet him like a child, those who have seen, Aurobindo, and like a child, he would be sitting. If he has to give some letter, he would say, I suppose this has to be posted, famous Nirodha. And Nirodha would say he would never order, post it, do it for me. Never. And he says 100 hungry hands would grab at the opportunity. He would never say, somebody wash my clothes. And Champak Lalji asked him, he said, are you sure? It is going to be very difficult. People will call names, even till date. I feel very sad when I hear people saying, Champak Lal Aurobindo, his servant. Of course, it's a great thing to be servant of God. But they use it as if, in a depreciatory way.
Yeah.
But look at, to be the servant of the Lord. And Aurobindo said it's very difficult. He was doing all this himself. After all the disciples would wash themselves with the towel, Aurobindo would go the same wet towel and he would clean himself with the same towel. He never told who he is. And to Champak Lalji, he says, you don't have to. He was doing it. So he said, no, I'll do it. And when he did it, one day he says to someone else who washed his dhoti only once, he says, you have washed this dhoti, I have washed away all your karmas. And Champak Lalji is standing and he's saying, he never told this to me. So Aurobindo, obviously he knew the thought. He turns to Aurobindo, to Champak Lalji, smiles, puts his hand on his shoulder and says, and yours too. It's understood. It's not something to be told.
Where was this?
There was a disciple, a Gujarati disciple, who would gaze at Aurobindo's window, One day Aurobindo was standing there. Those, early days, and
Yes.
So Aurobindo saw him and he felt that he has, as if indicated, that, Aurobindo never said anything, but he felt, he is calling me. So he went up, probably took his chances. And he said, yes, Lord, can I do something for you? Aurobindo says, no, there is no need to do anything. He said, no, but if I can do something. He said, okay, I suppose today I don't see Champak Lal. He must be busy with something. So if the dhoti can be washed. And he was so happy. I have got the opportunity of a lifetime.
And the one time he did.
One time. Only time. So when he came to return, he said, your karmas have been wiped away. I heard this story from someone who was very close and intimate with this man. I'm forgetting the name of this Gujarati gentleman. It starts with J. But anyways, so this story is a very authentic story. You won't find it in the books. So such things. And of course the powers, but never a lavish sense. He would follow the law. He would say, do it like this. Never. Sri Aurobindo never once, if you see, misused powers. Always when there was a need, and when he would intervene, devastating effects. Second World War, things like that. But lavish sense, Guruji, pomp, show, never like that. Even the darshan, even till date, you look at the samadhi, so unimposing. One little cloth curtain, people open the chapels nearby. Many of them are looking, where is the samadhi? Or they go past and say, what is this? So unimposing. But the asura gives a lavish sense. If an asura ever becomes a so-called master, he would make sure that everybody knows he's a master. Lavish sense he gave to power and joy, celebrations. Ashram celebrations, look at it. There is joy. It's a very subtle joy. Sri Aurobindo never encouraged all this beating and and then even on Darshan Day, it's such a quiet event, and Sri Aurobindo wanted it to be a quiet event. When people started doing all kinds of things, Mother said all kinds of dark forces started coming. But look at some of the gurus, let me not name. Joy, Shivratri celebration. So huge drama.
Yes.
I mean, Lord Shiva would run away if he sees this. I mean, he doesn't like these kind of ostentatious trappings. He lives like the poorest of the poor. I mean, he just puts a little ragtag dress over his body and yet he is the king. That Shiva. And he's not, that make it in a lavish. But so lavish sense. This line is important because this is one of the ways to understand. And I have often used this as a criteria.
And last night at 1:25 a.m., the drums and the horns started. And I said, I think they must be...
All the true gods would run away. That's a day given to all the...
I think they were praying to the god of insomnia.
Yes. Never. And Mother said that, no, the advent of a new world is not announced by the beating of drums.
Yes.
See, true divinity, when somebody told to Mother about, your painting, some of them were in Louvre and they must be saved. Mother said, my child will live in eternity. And then the person wanted to go and spread the yoga in America. And Mother writes, yoga is never spread by any external means. And she says, my child, when the sun comes out, it doesn't announce itself. Of course, the crows do. So I always feel many of us are like crows. We do caw. But the sun is there. Cocks and crows. Why not? It's something very nice to be the Lord's cock and crow. But look at the sun. The splendor of the sun. But if the cock and the crow begin to draw attention toward themselves, it's dangerous. They must know that, okay, fine, they have sensed the morning. But the morning is not because of the cock and the crow, it will come because the sun will come. So lavish sense to power and joy. And when arose the warning from within, he reassured the ear with dulcet tones, or took the mind captive in its own net. This is what we are talking about, the Jonestown. Some of these beings have a tremendous power. They don't leave you free to think or question. They will hold you captive in their own net. His rigorous logic made the false seem true. This, of course, I remember as a youngster who was just beginning to read Sri Aurobindo. I had read Swami Vivekananda and somebody very impressed with Rajneesh. Oh, he's very logical, intellectual. So I just read one book and said, this is trash. So, but no, he's very intellectual and logical. I said, okay, come, let's talk about it. And there's so many holes in that logic. But people are very impressed. Dark, absolutely dark. One can see through it. Now I don't remember and thankfully I don't. But his rigorous logic, you can twist and make anything. You're very comfortable. If he became bestseller till finally people realized his worth. To run away from Oregon and all these stories. That apart, May he rest in peace. So wherever he is, he spoke something very demeaningly about Sri Aurobindo that I came to know much later.
Oh,
Yeah, this is for those who. And Amal Kiran wrote a very fine rejoinder. Anyways, I didn't know all this. I just read a book and I could see through the man's logic, or so it seemed. Amazing the elect with holy lore. Who are the disciples? Elect.
the elect.
Very often, head of states. And people are very proud. Oh, so and so film actor goes to my Guruji. So I said, I don't know whether you are complimenting the Guruji or. I mean, what does it matter? And Sri Aurobindo writes, I am not keen to draw famous people. Gandhi wanted to come and meet Sri Aurobindo and he declined. And Govardhan Das, so often, sir, he is very keen to meet you. He said, no, he is saying all this, but he will follow his own path. And if he comes, he will come with a lot of fanfare. I don't want this place to be turned into a public thoroughfare. Sri Aurobindo never wanted. So, elect here in that sense. Elect. He spoke as with the very voice of God. The air was full of treachery and ruse. Now you see the mood changed. What is there? Many of these places you see all this happening. Truth speaking was a stratagem in that place. Ambush lurked in a smile and peril made safety its cover. Trust its entry gate. Come. If you enroll yourself into this religion, all that you need is to write your name and we'll give you a blessing. And now onwards, you have become a candidate to the heaven. That's it.
Now there's this whole expose on Scientology.
Yes, Scientology.
DVD, yes.
I was mentioning about that.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Then, of course, hot yoga, you must have heard. The man ran away. He's on the run. Okay. Mr. Vikram something. I don't know why Indians get involved into all this. There was another who talks about, Andrew Cohen, if you have heard. But anyways, so he talks about evolution and, he's very anger prone. He can beat his disciple. Anyways, things like that. Leave aside that. Mr. Vikram, he used to give a new version of yoga, hot yoga. Hot yoga means the whole atmosphere will be super hot by steam and you do yoga there. By yoga, he meant yogic exercise and it has a much greater effect. And people are fooled and tricked. Of course, I mean, world is always full of, people like that. And he had some fleet of Rolls Royce, 6 Rolls Royce, 19 cars, private jet, God knows what. So, Sri Aurobindo is telling us, safety its cover and trust its entry gate. They use some capacity in us. Something good. Falsehood came laughing with the eyes of truth. And what happens in that terrain, and we can see it happens in life and it's very unfortunate. It's because of the effect of this particular consciousness, this night, this falsehood. Each friend might turn an enemy or spy. You see how it happened with Sri Aurobindo. There is a story in Ramayana about a spy who got converted by the touch of Rama. And this story is well known to all those who know Ramayana. Similar story happened with Sri Aurobindo. So in his early disciples, one of them was a spy. And now how the French people would know that who is the spy and who is the others. So they told him, you shave off your head. So that, we don't have to tell everybody his identity. A shaven head means he's the spy, he's our fellow. So he shaved off his head. When he shaved off his head, another disciple of Sri Aurobindo said, this looks nice. I will also shave off my head. Moni. And the other,
Moni.
Moni, Suresh Chakravarti. So he also shaved off his head. Now, when this happened, this fellow felt, I'm sure everybody now knows about my being a spy. The change that came inside him, and he suddenly goes and falls at Sri Aurobindo's feet. Forgive me, Lord. I have done this. I have been a spy. And Sri Aurobindo is just looking like a child. And at the end, it's all right.
He knew it
He
anyway.
knew. Same with another spy story who came to ashram and took shelter with mother. Mother said, I have given him refuge. So, this line, each friend might turn into an enemy or a spy. They come posing as a friend. The hand one clasped, enslaved, a dagger stab, and an embrace could be doom's iron cage. These two lines remind me, each line of Sri Aurobindo, somehow, their stories can be made. There was a famous story we heard as a child of Shivaji and Afzal Khan. So Afzal Khan was a Mughal, and Shivaji was, of course, he was the Hindu king who was uniting all the other small vassal states into one Hindu Rashtra and trying to uproot the Muslims. So this fellow knew it's not easy to conquer Shivaji. So he offered truce. And so he invited Shivaji, and Shivaji went to meet him. So everybody cautioned Shivaji. Shivaji said, don't worry, I know. I have all the tricks of trade in my hand. So his whole idea was, Afzal Khan, that when he will embrace Shivaji, that two of them will embrace. And he had a dagger up his sleeve, exactly, and he will from behind stab him. He said, this is the only way I can probably kill this man. Shivaji had already anticipated. He was an expert because of that. So he was wearing what is called as Bhagnakha, the lion's nails. There was a weapon like that. And if you wear it, they look like rings. But on the other side, it's like all the 4 or 5 daggers, sharp. So he was wearing like this and went. So he never suspected. So he stretched his arms. Shivaji took him into the arms, and the moment he noticed this, Afzal Khan is trying to take out the daggers, he just simply finished him with that. Now, this story that the hand one clasped, ensleeved and dagger stabbed, and an embrace could be doom's iron cage. Story fits so well. Of course, at many levels it applies. Agony and danger stalked their trembling prey, and softly spoke as to a timid friend. Attacks sprang suddenly, vehement and unseen. Fear leaped upon the heart at every turn, and cried out with an anguished, dreadful voice. It called for one to save, but none came near. Because in that domain, everybody is part of that same plan. See what is happening to people in the captivity of ISIS. And we will read several places, these lines will come particularly. But here, all warily walked, for death was ever close. Look at the captives in that place, some of them who have escaped. They didn't know which is better, to die or to somehow survive. The same thing was happening with Hitler's captivity. They were praying for death. So this is all verily walked, for death was ever close. Yet caution seemed a vain expense of care, for all that guarded proved a deadly net. They were guards, but they were all out to fix. When Sri Aurobindo was in prison, there was particularly one Muslim jailer. There was one who was very nice. But there was one jailer who wanted to be in the good books of the British, and they had given him this task. You find out from him. Let him confess that, he was making bombs and he was a revolutionary. So he would give him special favors. And then one day he tells him, calls him and says, what, Aurobindo Babu, you are such an educated, refined person. Why are you with these people? I know you have done all this. But doesn't matter. There is a way out. I can tell you the way out. If you tell me the details where you had hid the bombs, I will tell you how to escape. I know these British, they are very ruthless. So Sri Aurobindo says, I knew he is trying to dig out things from me. Sri Aurobindo, he looks like a Bholanath. But so If you read that whole story, it's amazing. So he is guarding, trying to show as if he is going to help him. But he was a net, it was a net. And when after long suspense, salvation came and brought a glad relief, disarming strength. Look at this, when you are on a vigil. Now, very often we notice in yoga also you are keeping a vigil, but there are always weak moments. And falsehood is on the watch for that point of time to enter. So, here we have these lines disarming strength. It served as a smiling passage towards fate. With Chandragupta Maurya, he was one of the disciples of Aurobindo was Chandragupta Maurya, who took a human birth. And he was a great king. He was one of those great rulers who knit India into one. So he had his own great contribution. Chanakya's famous disciple. So he was very vigilant and he won against the Nand Empire and he is now the king. But he had won through a treaty with another great king called Parvatraj. He was the king of the Himalayas and they needed. So Chanakya got him together. Through an alliance they defeated the Greeks and Greeks through marriage and defeated the great Magad army. But now the problem was this king wanted to become the Samrat, the emperor. And on the other hand, there is this person. Meanwhile, some people plotted to send a Vishkanya, a poisoned maid, in those days, who had poison in a very blood and sweat, who could sleep with the king and finish him, to Chandragupta. Now Chandragupta was all relaxed. Oh, king, now I have won all the battles, disarming strength, but not his master. What the master did, he simply said, I think Parvatraj deserves. He is the one who has helped you. So that lady is sent to Parvatraj and he dies. And he dies, nobody suspects, what has happened. And so Chandragupta Maurya, this was the last step which he had to take before he became the uncontested sovereign of India. At that point of time. So, that there is a phase when you feel, now there is no danger. That's when danger strikes you. Because it has it's waiting for that moment. There was no truce and no safe place to rest in that domain. One dared not slumber or put off one's arms. It was a world of battle and surprise. Last 7-8 lines. All who were there. Now this is the sign of such a domain. What is the difference between hell and heaven? So in hell, everybody is living for themselves. In heaven, everybody is living for others. That famous story of, Asuras and Devas sitting together and food is served. We heard this story as a child. It's a lovely story. And they were told, before you start eating, he said, no, you can't bend your hand. So there was a stick or a ladle tied to them. So you can't bend your elbow and you have to eat. How do you do? So the Asuras put it and they started throwing it up and gobbling it. Or rushing here and there that somebody else throws, let me put my mouth. Because you don't have any other option. The Devas, they picked up, gave to another. Others gave to this person. So it was as simple as that. So this is the difference and we see it here. All who were there lived for themselves alone. This is the sign of an Asuric civilization. This kind of individuality is a dangerous one. Where I am a law unto myself and a freedom. There is a deep Vedantic truth in it. But a truth easily distorted by the Asura. All warred against all, but with a common hate. Turned on the mind that sought some higher good. Truth was exiled, lest she should dare to speak. Because that is dangerous. It hurts. Let they be. So often we will see Asuric kings surrounded by flatterers. Because if you say, the emperor, you don't have a cloth, you don't like it. So, such people who are of a Asuric predisposition, when they become kings, they don't like critics near them. They like a coterie of people who praise. See the difference. Mother and Aurobindo, King of Kings. Amal Kiran, we are reading. Writing letters to him criticizing his poetry. Mother at one point says moronic. But Aurobindo, he never said, Amal, how dare you question? Don't you know I am Cambridge educated? You fellow, you think too much about your poetry. No, he is patiently replying. Sometimes three, four pages of note, even more than that.
Yes.
You think it is like this, maybe, but like that, he didn't have to do it. He would have simply said, the master says so. So he kept all these people who were critics, Dilip Kumar Roy, and he patiently responds to them, Nirod Baran. Many of them who doubted, criticized, and Aurobindo never exiled them. They were near him. Mother, this lady who wanted to push her down, she kept near. And people knew she gets possessed by hostile forces. And mother said, my child, if she goes elsewhere, there will be a chaos. Now, this is the difference between an Asuric kingship, lordship, and divine kingship and lordship. So the divine accepts and transmutes. The Asura throws away, exiles, rejects, punishes. And whom? Those who dare to speak truth.
And now this beautiful line.
Yes. And heard the heart of darkness with her light. Truth was exiled, lest she should dare to speak, and heard the heart of darkness with her light, or bring her pride of knowledge to blasphemy. The settled anarchy of established things, the paradox. Settled anarchy, it's an anarchy. But they would say it's an established order. Fatwa.
Yes.